Hello and welcome back to what will likely be, for the time being, the final MSM Composer commentary video. In this video we will be discussing what we could expect if the Celestials were to come to MSM Composer. Again, although these chances are slim, especially in comparison to other classes such as the Mythicals, it doesn't hurt to speculate, as you never know what fast ones the monster handlers could pull on us. With all this being said, allow us to discuss what we could expect for the 12 Celestials. If you're new here, we will be talking about various basic aspects of each monster, alongside with any opinions I may have on a certain monster. These aspects would include note length, syllables, and staff divisions, along with things such as vocalizations, instrumentations, and staff layouts based on what category a monster is placed in. Speaking of which, these videos are divided into 3 categories: Instrumentalists, Vocalists, and Percussionists, so why don't we start with the Instrumentalists? Let's start off with Hornicle, who would be a tremendous help to the Composer app. As you probably know if you watched my videos or even just use the Composer app, it lacks brass so much. This is why Hornicle would be of such use, as they're a French horn, so this could revolutionize the app, to put it lightly. To help Hornicle's case even further, I'd like to believe that they have a good chance of receiving a full staff and held notes due to their performances showcasing that they are capable of both. Next up is Blasum, who would once again be a game changer for the app. Their low range on the bassoon would fit so well in the app, as it would provide such a unique and almost bassy sound font that we would be able to use a lot. Following the same path of Hornicle, I think again that Blasum would without a doubt have a full staff and held notes, because it is quite evident that they'd be able to fulfill both areas. As for Vamp, their addition would also be of quite the use, but I'd predict not to the same extent as the previous 2 Instrumentalists. They play the organ, which is an instrument we haven't had the luxury of using in the Composer app thus far, so I'd love to have them added. Following the current trend that we've been having, Vamp could totally get a full staff and long notes, as organs are very much capable of doing such things, which Vamp has proven. Next up is Sitar, who I feel like wouldn't be as impactful as all of the other Instrumentalists that we've discussed thus far. Nevertheless, their addition still would be nice, as the sitar is a unique string instrument which could be used in place of missing string instruments. As for technical stuff, Sitar would most likely have short notes based upon the fact that that's how I feel like their Celestial Island sounds are being portrayed, along with their Starhenge sounds being heavily soundscape based. However, they could definitely get a full staff, so that'd be a plus. As for our final instrumentalist, we have Ludwig, who I've been eagerly anticipating discussing for some time now. Over the years, I've had issues with the ranges that we've had for pianos in the Composer app. You can see these issues shine through in some of my covers, some notable examples being My Castle Town, Friends, and most recently Penumbra Phantasm. All of these songs were heavily piano focused, which explains why I had issues with getting the ranges I wanted out of the piano monsters we currently have, those being Quibble and Somewhat Cast. We also have some other monsters that could suffice, including ones like Rare Quibble, who's a harpsichord, Rare Deej, who's just a synth, and even a combo of Sponge and Rare Thumpies. Obviously, these monsters heavily stray away from the piano, with Rare Quibble being the closest, but I've come to terms that these monsters have to suffice at times, even if I'm not too thrilled about that. All this to be said, to get back on track, Ludwig would be multiple steps in the right direction, as they're obviously a pianist. That being said, I would really love Ludwig to play a very low octave on the piano, as 1, that's not out of the theme for them, and 2, Quibble just doesn't get low enough from what I've deduced over the years. As for the technical things though, Ludwig would 100% get a full staff and held notes. Now, moving on to the vocalists, it's only fitting that we start out with the monster that's both a vocalist and an instrumentalist, that being Atmaz. Since they both sing and play the air guitar, it's a given that they'd get a split staff consisting of both, so this would be the first appearance of a split staff monster actually making sense. It would also be extremely likely that they'll get held notes because, well, that's the entirety of what they do when they're part of a song. Next up is Galvana, who sounds noticeably worse in the main game in comparison to Dawn of Fire. In the main game, their sound is classified as a synth flute, while in Dawn of Fire, they're a real vocalist, but I'm afraid that they'll likely use the synth flute for the Composer app. For one, it's Galvana's sound in the main game, which is what I'd assume they base the Composer app off of, and secondly, it's probably easier to just use a sound font like the synth flute to create each and every pitch rather than having a vocalist come in and record it. With all that being said, assuming that they do go with the synth flute, I think it's likely that Galvana would receive a full staff and held notes due to what we've seen from them and the limitless possibilities that the synth can have. And for our final vocalist, we have the only real one, no instruments attached, that being Plixie. I think their voice could be unique for the Composer app, as it's like almost a falsetto male range to me, so that could work well in the app and complement monsters like Furcorn. As for technical stuff, we may be able to expect held notes, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they get short notes instead. As for their staff, I think they'd have a split staff consisting of Lu and Ah. And finally, for our percussionists, let's start out with another double monster, that being Glacier, who is both a percussionist and a vocalist. With this being said, they'd have the same treatment as Atmos, as both of them double down on what they do. With this being said, Glacier's staff would be split up into a tom part and a vocal part in which they'd say do. They would also definitely get short notes since toms, well, can't be elongated and Glacier's singing is very short in nature. Next up, let's talk about the two kit monsters. The first one being Tort. They have various simple sounds, so it's pretty straightforward. Their staff would be split up into 4 sections, being as follows. The bottom could be a kick, the lower middle could be a clap, the upper middle could be a ride cymbal, and the top could be a crash cymbal. I think their sounds could be useful, especially the clap and ride cymbal, but I feel like other monsters in this video would play a bigger role. And finally, Tort will obviously not have held notes, as will be the case for the rest of the percussionists here. For the other kit monster, Syncopite could be a pretty big addition, as they're a synth drum kit, so if they're added, that could be quite useful. Their staff would be split up into 3 sections, the bottom being for the kick, the middle being for the snare, and the top being for the hi-hat. Although they don't add any never seen before sounds, their unique sound font would be a great addition to the app, especially if you're looking to do trap-like beats. And for our final percussionist, we have Furnos. Their instruments are heavily edited toms and bass drums, so they'd have a split staff consisting of those sounds. I really think that's the extent of what they do, so it's nothing revolutionary, and I can't think of how I'd use them in making a song, as to me it just sounds like the cracking of thunder. I think in that regard, they could be good for recreating sound effects in the app, but I'm not sure that I'd use them for anything else. Anything could be possible though, so I wouldn't mind their additions. And with that being said, that concludes my ideas on the Celestials in MSM Composer, and in turn concludes my MSM Composer speculations as a whole. By all means, I could talk about the Magicals, but I honestly don't have the desire to do so because of the sheer amount of them. And every other class is unfinished at this time, so I wouldn't be able to do those. All that being said, until we actually get new content for MSM Composer, I think I'll hang up my discussion videos. But, as always, please feel free to let me know your thoughts and opinions on my speculations in the comments below, and feel free to share your own ideas as well. It has been really fun coming up with these ideas for possible additions of classes and rarities, and I hope you all enjoyed them too. Nevertheless, I really do hope we can get a substantial update soon, but until then, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. See ya.